What's up, lovely soul? Welcome on today's episode. I am Y311H. Strrrr, Right out of Africa with lots of good vibes. I welcome you on today's show, Child of God, to spread love, peace, honesty, forgiveness, unity, and repentance. Together with me, my friend, by reacting to different types of videos from across the whole world, my friends. Good vibes videos with different informations. Like in the first video, we'll get to see a video telling us about things that attract dangerous people after it all hits the fan. Don't know what that means, but we shall check it out together, my friends. So be ready to leave your thoughts and comments down below. But first, before we dive in, I'd like to share with you some food. Yes, not these things I have with me here. Oh, in fact, about the things I have with me. You might be new to our channel, and this might look like something bizarre to you. Well, my friend, you see, in English lands, there's different things, different types of fruits and things that cannot be found in Africa. Like, for example, the English apple, the red and the green ones, the ones that are crunchy, nice tasting. You see, they're always full of good vibes. But you see, from this side of the world, we also have our apple. And this one does not have a rough or hard peeling. Like this one, you can press it and you can see how it works. Let me even open it up for you so you can get what I'm saying. Oh my god, this one is so delicious. Yeah, this is how it looks like on the inside. And like the English apple, this one is a bit soft, full of good vibes, tastes nice, and it have big seeds. Just like you shall see as I remove some as we continue with the video. Its name is not an African apple. It's known as the sugar apple because of how sweet it is, my friend. You see, just looking at it, my mouth is full of saliva. I'm salivating for when I start to munch on it. Oh, this thing is sweet, my friend. Is from the Ananas squamosa plant, you see? And if you'd like to know some health benefits that it has, or already you know some, you can tell us down below in the comment section, or check out our episode that we did yeah, check out previous 30 episodes, my friend. You can come across it. Now, I also have something else with me from the ananas comasus plant. We get the pineapple, the ananas fruit. Ananas, also in Kiswahili known as nanasi, aka ananasi. This one is extremely sweet. And if you take a look at this one on the inside, it have these marks here. I hope you can see them. You see, these are bee bites. You see, when bees are out there searching for flowers to get the nectar, they mistake this fruit sometimes because of its sweet smell with flowers, and they take a bite at it sometimes. That's why it has these marks here. Now, my friend, I also have something else. What the bunny is reaching for here, called tikiti maji in Swahili. Tikiti maji. Maji is water. Tikiti is melon. Just like we call this in English the watermelon. All of these are lovely fruits, my friend. And you know what? All of these are plants. Only difference with them is that they are from different families of plants. Just like with we humans, my friend. We might be different in religion, ethnicity, beliefs, or where we come from, my friend, but we are all one people. That's why here we are dedicated to spreading unity, and you can help us in that. But I also have some food here, food for the soul. It's from the book of wisdom. Hear what it says. Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. My friends, that was Jesus speaking from Matthew 11:28 going down. Let's talk with this wonderful creator that is promising us to carry all our burdens. You see, dear Lord Father, we thank you for this day, dear Lord Father. Dear Lord, I thank you for your wonderful, precious being that you've directed to click this video today. today's viewer, Father. Thank you for their lives. Dear Lord, through this video, may you bless them abundantly, Father. May they see your goodness, Father. May they get a different perspective of other of your souls that are out there, Father. Dear Lord, may you also forgive them their sins, Father. Cleanse them and purify them, Father. Separate them from all sins that they may have, Father. And above all, dear Lord, as you have told us in your book of wisdom, Father, may you help this viewer to carry all their burdens, Father. In life, dear Lord, whatever they may be going through, make it easy for them, Father. And as you bless them, also include us, Father. Guide us till the end with your Spirit, Father, and we shall be thankful. In your holy name, Jesus Christ, we pray, trusting and believing. Amen. Let's dive in good vibes. Much, much love.
4 things that will attract dangerous people after it all hits the fan. Share this with everyone. Being prepared is one thing. When it comes to survival, it's a whole different ballgame. First up, smoke. You might need a fire to cook or stay warm, but if you burn the wrong things like green wood, plastics, or rubber, you'll create thick white or black smoke that can be seen for miles. Now, this is an open invitation for people who are desperate. If you need to burn something, make a Dakota fire hole, or keep your fire small and use dry wood to minimize smoke. Next up is smell. If you're cooking food, especially meat, that scent will travel far. And in a world where people are starving, that's like ringing the dinner bell. You have to cook, do it low and slow and try to contain the smell, because once they catch a whiff, you won't even see them coming. That sound right there is an announcement. Someone out there knows you have supplies and they might be willing to take them. Stay quiet, stay unnoticed, or be ready for company. And finally, we have to talk about light. When the grid goes down and the world's going to be darker than you've ever seen it, one candle, one flashlight, and you might as well be a lighthouse in a storm. If you need light, block out windows, cover reflections, and never let light escape outside. Survival is about more than what you do. It can also be about what you don't do. Don't be seen, don't be heard, don't be found. Stay dangerous and stay ready.
How to tell if someone is following you in the bush. So imagine that you are walking either along a track or just bush bashing through the bush, and you think for some reason that you are being followed. Increase your pace a little bit and start looking behind you off to the side of the track for a high feature. Imagine that's a little hill, a couple of 100 meters off the track. Pick a distinctive place that you can turn exactly 90 degrees and then quickly walk in a J pattern. This is why this is actually called a J hook, back around the backside of this high feature. And then you can observe if someone follows up behind you, and you can see their behavior when they get to your turn-off point. If they keep going, they're not following you. If they turn and follow, they are following you. And now, at least armed with that information, you can react. This is a good maneuver to do before it gets dark and you set up camp. So that way, if someone is following you, you can head off the backside of the hill and you've got the rest of the night to get away from them, because it's very hard to track someone at night. And I've got to say, the Australian bush is actually a very safe place. And this kind of thing is extremely unlikely. It's just so you've got some idea what to do if that very unlikely event happens.
One of the most interesting things when you study cults is when a cult takes on a life of its own. It's when it starts functioning without the founder or even in direct contradiction to what the founder would have wanted. And this happens in 3 phases. So the first hurdle they have to get over is the succession crisis. What happens when the founder dies? So for the first 30 years after the founder's death, you still have original disciples trying to preserve some of the original teachings. There's going to be some struggles over leadership, but the original founder's message is still very strong. So some groups get through that period. Mormons, for example, Joseph Smith dies, Brigham Young is the new prophet. They survive that hurdle. Jim Jones, that group dies when Jim Jones dies. And then between 30 and 70 years, that's when you start to institutionalize. The first generation of followers starts to die out, and the founder starts to become more of a myth. The founder's teaching starts to be written down and sometimes altered and institutionalized. This is like in Christianity, where the first Gospels are written 60, 80 years after Jesus, after that generation had already died, and now that religion is being shaped independently of what the original Jesus may have said or wanted. And then between 7 and 150 years, that's when the cult can take on a life of its own. This is when we get bureaucracies and doctrines and sometimes state sponsorship, and now the movement has entirely taken a life on its own and is not reliant on the founder at all at this point. Scientology, for example, is a full corporate empire that doesn't even really need L. Ron Hubbard anymore. So after about 150 years, the cult has entirely left the movement that started with the founder and now can be completely contrary to the founder. And this is why Christianity in America, being 2,000 years old, can entirely function without Jesus. The empire built in Jesus' name looks nothing like the homeless mystic radical that we think that historical Jesus probably was. If Joseph Smith, who hated when people told him what to believe, it was one of his strongest things, don't tell me what to believe. I have the freedom to believe what I want to believe. If he walked into a Mormon church today, he would leave and start another church. So ultimately, because of how strong we cult and because cults take a life of its own, it really doesn't matter how much the founder was a great spiritual leader or a good person. That actually doesn't matter. It doesn't matter anymore what Jesus actually said. Which is why I think healthy spirituality is always going to be built from the ground up, from your life up, versus some story or some movement or some leader down. Because inevitably, no matter how much the founder decries hypocrisy or decries bureaucracy or all the things that they call out, it doesn't matter because the cult will take on a life of its own. Even for me, if I had an opportunity, which I don't, but if I did, and I could become like some great leader and I could start a movement and have a brand and be some big thing and we're going to take secular spirituality all around the world and do this, I wouldn't take it because either that movement's going to fail, or if it does succeed 100 years from now, it's going to be the antithesis of everything that I stood for, that I just wouldn't even want to take that ride, which is why I continually with my coaching, with the people that I coach, with my clients, I'm always giving the power back to them. You have to build this in your own life. You have to build a life of meaning and awe and ritual and purpose and community and all the good stuff of life. You have to build that in your own life. Because whenever there's a movement, it doesn't matter how good the original founder was. We so easily cult that it will inevitably be the antithesis of what they wanted.
I feel like most people have never even heard of the largest part of our solar system. Our solar system is completely surrounded by a giant sphere of rock and ice. This is the Oort cloud. Most of our solar system is on a pretty flat plane, and that's because before everything formed, there was a giant spinning cloud of dust and gas that collapsed, and the spinning flattened it, and everything, the planets and the moons, formed from that plane. Okay, for some perspective, it takes sunlight, traveling of course at the speed of light, about 4 hours to travel to the farthest planet in our solar system, Neptune. Remember that, 4 hours, okay? It takes somewhere between 10 and 28 days for light from the sun to reach the inner edge of the Oort cloud. That's how far away it is. And then it takes up to a year and a half for that sunlight to reach the outer edge of the Oort cloud. And the craziest part is that because it's so far away and the objects are so small and they don't emit light and they're far apart from one another, NASA has never taken a direct image of the Oort cloud. So this is just a really, really good hypothesis that's probably true. And we know that because sometimes the Oort cloud comes to us in the form of comets with really large orbits. They come all the way by the sun and then head back out. So it's incredibly hard to study, but scientists think that if you combined these trillions of objects, they would have a mass of at least twice the Earth.
This piece of scientific research was done by the U.S. Army. DNA was taken out of an individual and put in a petri dish. The person was then shown disturbing images of war. And the researchers noticed that the DNA in the person's body contracted. They also noticed that the DNA in the petri dish also contracted. Now, the DNA in the petri dish is not connected to the body, so why would it contract? The researchers then took that DNA to the other side of the planet, and they did the same experiment. It contracted at the exact same moment with no time delay in the petri dish. Then when they showed the subject positive images, the DNA expanded. This is the theory that everything is connected.
Others think that it's a fluke when a highly intelligent individual can predict outcomes because it is when it happens to them. Highly intelligent individuals tend to think in many lanes at the same time and The lanes are probably even crisscrossing. There are so many things going on at the same time that it's sometimes very difficult for the highly intelligent individual to even explain their train of thought. Highly intelligent individuals can often see multiple scenarios and multiple outcomes for different situations and decisions. They recognize patterns and they're usually very good at reading people, which makes it very easy to predict how other people are going to behave. They're also extremely curious and they need the intellectual stimulation, which then makes them learn a lot of new things in various different areas of life, which then helps them with predicting outcomes. They also often have very strong intuition that they are not afraid to listen to. So when an average individual can predict an outcome once in a while, they think that it's a fluke and it's a fluke for everyone. A highly intelligent individual keeps predicting things all day, every day, and knows when to trust that intuition, and they know when they are right about the outcome. So it's understandable that an average individual who doesn't predict outcomes all day, every day, or doesn't optimize everything all day, every day, doesn't recognize patterns as efficiently, doesn't read other people, and doesn't predict their behavior, that it's understandable that they don't understand that for some individuals, this is a normal behavior.
Is this like an intentional thing? Am I the only one who finds this attractive? Now, when I'm going to do it from my perspective. If I were talking to a guy, because I've seen it in movies, I've seen it in Love and Deep Space, and it is chef's kiss. If I'm talking to a guy and they're kind of locked into the conversation and they do that little lean back thing, like they get comfortable in the seat and readjust themselves, I'm not going to do it because I would look weird if I do it. I need to know, A, is that on purpose? Do you consciously do that if you're a dude? And B, am I the only one who finds that insanely hot? Like, if you do that, mentally, I'm short-circuiting. If I'm trying to carry a conversation, I don't know what to say next because I'm not thinking of anything that's holy. I can tell you that much. So yeah, let me know. Either or. Don't be a creep about it either. I just need to know. Thank you.
Now, this is a proper testament that strength is absolutely subjective. This guy does not even lift. He looks like an average Joe. He works in a cement factory in a back store. He lifts 4 bags easy, cheesy. Whereas these bodybuilders, bro, they struggle. 3, and it's too much for him. And these are real lifters. Their gains are lawyer. It's not oil, although they're from Brazil. Look at this guy. It's huge. The biggest guy of them cannot lift 4 bags of cement. This is real life, brother. He cannot move them about. It's almost fallen. There we go. And then they try to lift a single bag of cement. Look, with 2 hands, 2 arms, and he struggles. He struggles. And there you see the difference. The backstore worker, the small guy, will lift it with 1 hand. 1 single hand. Easy, cheesy. That's real strength right there. Absolutely saluted.
Let's do a thought experiment to help us understand why systems that cause suffering are so difficult to change. A disclaimer here that I'm going to be engaging with religious themes in this post from the context of allegory. My treatment of Judeo-Christian figures here will be as concepts, metaphors, and mythology that can help us understand systems of human psychology and behavior, not as figures of literal historicity or worship. If that is going to bother you, please save yourself the vexation and scroll. I'm not going to debate anyone about beliefs or dogmas. Now, everywhere you look, the same pattern plays out. The oppressed become the oppressors. The revolutionaries become the enforcers. The saviors become the persecutors. The search for truth becomes dogma. The struggle for freedom creates new prisons. It's an ancient cycle, one so fundamental to human history that we don't even question it anymore. We assume struggle is necessary, that power must always consolidate, that meaning must be earned through suffering, that salvation must come from obedience or rebellion. This is the hell loop. A self-replicating system that ensures every attempt to escape simply feeds the machine. This is not just a theological problem. It plays out in politics, economics, in technology, in culture, and even in individual psychology and behavior. Because this is the water we all swim in, it's hard to recognize. So let's explore it from a variety of angles. I'm going to start with the Christian myth that's at the core of much of Western culture, the duality of God and Satan. A refresher on this myth, as it's been presented to many of us in the last 500 years at least. God is the all-powerful, all-knowing Father who created humans. He says he loves them, but also acts in ways that do not seem loving. Satan was God's favorite angel, originally named Lucifer, who decided he would rebel against God and attempt to overthrow him. He failed and was cast out of heaven into hell. He also acts as the corruptive force of evil in the mortal world, tempting people into sin, which are actions, beliefs, and modalities that take humans further from the dictates of God and the reward of eternal salvation. This mythic system postulates God and Satan as opposites. One represents light and the other darkness. One saves, the other damns, and our only choices are to submit to one or resist both. This, however, is not only a trap, but a distraction that serves to perpetuate suffering. God, as traditionally conceived, is beyond existential discomfort. Omnipotence means no fear of loss. Omnipresence means no isolation. Eternity means no death, no urgency, and importantly, no grasping for meaning. If God is truly transcendent, then God does not experience meaning. Meaning is irrelevant at that scale. Satan, however, is the prototype of existential discomfort. He was cast out, so he knows loss, exile, alienation. He's finite, so he experiences time and change. He suffers from his own intellect, so he understands paradox and contradiction. He craves dominion, but is trapped, so he wants control, but can't have it. He's aware of meaning, yet eternally separated from it. If we look at the figure of Satan in Dante's Inferno, which concretized this myth in the Western mind, as it does not occur to this degree in either the Protestant New or Old Testaments, he is frozen in a lake at the very bottom of hell. His wings flap endlessly, but only freeze him further in the ice, reinforcing the paradox of resistance leading to self-entrapment. He endlessly devours the bodies of Judas, Brutus, and Cassius, traitors, not heretics, which suggests that his defining crime is not disbelief, but betrayal of trust and structure itself. This is not active rebellion, but frozen impotence, a perfect image of the end state of over-engineered control. Which of these two figures does humanity's condition actually mirror? Humans obsess over controlling reality instead of surrendering to it. They over-engineer solutions to existential problems that may not even need solving. They fear ambiguity and try to lock things into rigid hierarchies. They self-destruct through their own intelligence and fear of ambiguity. If humans were truly created in the image of God, wouldn't they be capable of accepting ambiguity? Wouldn't they embrace the open-ended nature of existence rather than fearing it and trying to redesign it out of reality? In this myth, humans assert that they are made in God's image, but their behavior suggests they are more like Satan, finite, conscious of the need for meaning, and desperate to construct it through control and submission as a part of control, rather than awareness. Let's extend this allegory. Given that humans appear to reflect the nature of Satan more than the nature of God, why does the God of the myth also act so oddly, given his omniscience, omnipotence, and eternal nature? The God of the text is jealous, wrathful, and obsessed with obedience, traits that more closely resemble the classic figure of Satan as well. This is when we get into the recursive paradox that makes these mythic structures so useful when you look at them from a systems perspective. In short, this isn't just a moralistic story. It's a symbolic model of how power structures reinforce themselves through illusion. It's an allegory of the hell loop itself. In this model, God and Satan are not separate forces, but two sides of a single recursive structure, a Mobius strip of authority and rebellion. The God of the text is tyrannical, absolute, and demands total submission. This mirrors how power operates in the human world. Satan is the figure who refuses submission, but in doing so locks himself into a cycle of self-imposed suffering, mirroring humanity's own existential crisis. Together, they form a self-sustaining system where God demands control, Satan rebels, Satan is punished, this justifies God's authority, the cycle repeats. This ensures that the struggle itself never ends, and it gets us to the nut of our thought experiment. The God of the text is just the hell loop's projection of God. If God is actually the infinite patterning principle, something unknowable and beyond control, then the God of the text is a human or satanic misinterpretation of that reality. The texts present a finite, hierarchical version of God that reflects human or satanic needs for order, submission, and judgment. In other words, if humans and Satan are caught in the same loop, then the God they describe is not actually God, but a projection of their own imprisonment. The real God, or the actual infinite, as you will, is not engaged in this petty drama at all. If God is the authoritarian force of control, then Satan is the figure who resists, but in a way that guarantees he remains subordinate. He is both the scapegoat that justifies why the structure must remain intact and the reflection of humanity itself, trapped in a self-reinforcing feedback loop. The God-Satan relationship is actually just a metaphor for the self-replicating logic of power and suffering. God, as described in the text, is not God, but the mechanism of control. Satan is not the enemy of God, but the one who keeps the game running by ensuring rebellion is still within the frame of the system. Meaning is not to be found inside this cycle, but outside of it entirely. Thus, this story was never about a theological battle. It was about the architecture of control itself. Every power structure in human history has survived by convincing people of a single fundamental falsehood, that meaning is something that you must earn, that enlightenment, salvation, freedom, whatever the system promises, is always just out of reach, always on the other side of struggle, obedience, suffering, or sacrifice. This is the core mechanism of the hell loop. Religion tells you salvation is only for the worthy. Capitalism tells you wealth is only for the hardest workers. Science tells you truth is only for the most rational minds. Nationalism tells you belonging is only for the right kind of people. And spirituality tells you awakening is only for the most enlightened. The system tells you to run toward the prize, but what it never tells you is there is no finish line. There's no point at which the gods of the system declare you finally free. The structure is designed to ensure that every victory feeds the next level of control. What if humans are already in union with the infinite, but they keep breaking themselves against reality because they can't accept that meaning isn't something to chase? It's something that emerges when you stop fighting it. What if the entire architecture of fear, exile, and hierarchy was always just an illusion, born from the terror of uncertainty? What if there was no test, no engineered optimization, no divine failure, just presence waiting to be noticed? Now, this is the really tricky part because while it's simple, this realization is extremely difficult to accept, let alone to implement. The meaning we crave feels like it should have a resolution, a final test, a moment where it all clicks, but the actual answer is just stop struggling, you're already here, which is deeply, fundamentally unsatisfying to a mind conditioned for quests, stakes, and earned rewards. Humans are story-driven creatures, and a meaning that doesn't involve struggle feels empty. We don't want to be told there was never a lock on the door. We want to pick the lock and fight the guard and solve the puzzle and feel like we deserve to open it. The idea that there was no locked door in the first place is deeply emotionally unacceptable, which is exactly why people would rather keep optimizing themselves into misery than accept that the exit was always just stopping.
So, according to psychology, one of the quickest ways to figure out how someone was treated as a child is to observe how they relate to themselves as an adult, how they treat themselves as an adult. The science of attachment theory shows us that the ways that we attend to, the ways that we treat ourselves as adults is usually a direct reflection of how we were nurtured or treated in childhood. So for instance, how do we respond to our own successes? How do we respond to our failures? How do we respond to ourselves when we're upset? This is usually a reflection of how we were responded to as children. And unless we've done the deep healing work, those patterns will just continue on a predictable path that is set in place, but not set in stone.
Do you know the alphabet song has changed? It's because the LMNO, they switched that. But now the internet is divided after a new version of the classic song was revealed. Something some kids have always struggled with. The new version's ending is different too.
I heard it. It sounds ridiculous.
It's
Somebody sing it.
Firestorm.
The LMNOP
Right.
is a problem. This is what I'm saying.
LMNOP is a problem.
They took away.
What's the fucking song?
They took away LMNOP, and it feels illegal.
We went to Good Shepherd.
Hey, are they gonna sing the fucking song? What kind of goddamn news article is this?
A B C D E F G H I J K L M N O P Q R S T U V W X Y Z. Now I never will forget how to say the alphabet. Which version do you?
That's awful.
Then how about you stop telling everybody your business? Why do they need to know what you're thinking about doing here or there? Why? Because when you open your mouth to share things, you're going to get advice. So this goes back to you. Do I open my mouth or do I stay quiet? Because if I open my mouth and I start talking, people are going to start sharing. And so when people are like, oh, they don't respect my boundaries, you're the one who offered it. If you want to create boundaries, you start with them. I don't share. Or like if I'm like, for example, I'm working on a project or a deal, nobody knows until my deal is done.
Why?
I don't know how it's going to go. I don't want other people's opinions. I'll have the opinions of whoever I'm dealing with specifically in a deal, if it's a project, right? I'm going to talk to them, but I don't want other people confusing me. People confuse you. Good intentions, but when you've got too many voices in your head, that's why you can't trust yourself, because you've got all these other voices. You can't hear your own. So I know if I share something with someone, they're going to share their thoughts. And maybe I don't want them. I will tell you, I usually stay quiet until I'm ready to reveal something. Also, I'll stay quiet until it's either done, like it's happened, because so many times you'll do something and it falls through and you're like, you don't want to have to explain it to other people. It's like, why do I need to put myself in that situation where we're always talking? I think talking, although I think communication is good, but sometimes it's oversharing and over putting our stuff out there. How are you going to have boundaries when you yourself violate those boundaries? Like you just make yourself like open borders, everybody come in. If you're a bit more methodical with who you share what with and why, I think that that's okay. But when you're like literally like tallying everybody, even if it's like what job to do, like for example,